talk about chemical application, these are done effectively.
Since they got the skill, they have really changed.
Extraordinary, for sure, because I didn't expect this in Uganda here. Yeah, I
Since they got the skill, they have really changed.
They work as if it's their own, and they want to make sure that at least you get what you want from the garden.
The model that is being promoted for the first time in eastern Uganda is likely to
the rice byproducts also increase. And the two major byproducts from rice production are straw and the rice husks. And these are the ones that also give farmers a lot of problems in terms of ensuring that they utilize them effectively. So you will find that some of the farmers are even burning these husks to ensure that they don't become a menace in the field, because they take longer to decompose because of the composition of these particular materials. For instance, the rice husks have a lot of silicon, so the composition becomes very difficult. Similarly with the rice straws. So Basically, we are trying to help these farmers utilize some of these farmers and millers to utilize these byproducts. MRGM is one of the partners that we are working with very closely, and our other project called the Competitive African Rice Initiative, which is complementing very well with the project we just talked about, the R4I CSA, funded by the iCare Foundation. They are complementing each other because CARI is focusing very much on the rice, the real rice market linkages, while market linkages for rice basically seeking to do what we call import substitution, basically increasing the local production and local consumption of locally produced rice, and thereby cutting down on the import bills. Now, R4I CSA, as you can see, now is seeking to ensure that now that rice is produced sustainably, yeah, and the rice byproducts are also used in a very feasible commercial. For instance, as you can see right behind us here, there's a lot of rice husks which are produced every year and every milling shift. We produce MRGM and every other rice miller here in Kenya and elsewhere produce a lot of rice husks per shift, and that becomes a menace, as you can see. Were it not for some of the initiatives that we started, you would find heaps and heaps of rice husks here. So this is one of the partners, MRGM, that we are now linking with Safi Organics for the supply of rice husks to the youth carbonators, who we are now supporting to register a photo company. Turn these husks into biochar, which now Safi Organics is turning into bio fertilizer, or basically biochar fertilizers. And this particular partnership also, as I said, we are very keen on sustainable rice production again, and we are working with the extension officers in this particular company or farmers cooperative to ensure that we are able to train farmers on efficient use of water and efficient use of soil nutrients, particularly N-based fertilizers. So what we are doing under this particular project on sustainable rice production and R4I CSA is to ensure that we have what we call rice legume integration by the farmers, so that when the farmers harvest their rice, they take back a leguminous crop for rotation, and we are rotating the rice with legumes like green grams, that is mung beans. We are rotating with soybeans. We are also using all those soybeans, green grams, and cowpeas to ensure, or even chickpeas, to ensure that when rice is harvested, that residual moisture, we are able to reuse that moisture by planting quickly the legumes, which now use that residual moisture, and they are very early maturing. So they, on the process of growing, they fix nitrogen, which means the farmer is able to use less N-based fertilizers in the subsequent season for rice farming. So my name is Anthony Mugambi. I'm the country director for Kilimo Trust Kenya, and the project team leader for our iCare funded regenerative rice project called Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Rice Initiative. Basically call it R4I CSA. Reduce, Recycle Rice Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture. And this is a project basically focused on ensuring that we are able to utilize maximally and effectively and commercially all the rice byproducts that are produced from the rice growing areas in Kenya, and particularly central Kenya, that is Moya, Kirinyaga County, and Ahero and Busia in Western Kenya. This particular project is also in Uganda, and we are focusing on in eastern Uganda as well. And talking about Uganda, Kenya particularly, as you may know, rice consumption has been increasing at a very exponential rate of about over 12% per annum, which means production is going up. Subsequently, you realize that you have the rice byproducts also increase. And the two major byproducts from rice production are straw and the rice husks. And these are the ones that also give farmers a lot of problems in terms of ensuring that they utilize them effectively. So you will find that some of the farmers are even burning these husks to ensure that they don't become a menace in the field, because they take longer to decompose because of the composition of these particular materials. For instance, the rice husks have a lot of silicon, so the composition becomes very difficult. Similarly with the rice straws. So basically, we're trying to help these farmers utilize some of these farmers and millers to utilize these byproducts. MRGM is one of the partners that we are working with very closely, and our other project called the Competitive African Rice Initiative, which is complementing very well with the project we just talked about, the R4I CSA, funded by the iCare Foundation. They are complementing each other because CARI is focusing very much on the rice, the real rice market linkages, while market linkages for rice basically seeking to do what we call import substitution, basically increasing the local production and local consumption of locally produced rice, and thereby cutting down on the import bills. Now, R4I CSA, as you can see, now is seeking to ensure that now that rice is produced sustainably, yeah, and the rice byproducts are also used in a very feasible commercial. For instance, as you can see right behind us here, there's a lot of rice husks which are produced every year and every milling shift. We produce MRGM and every other rice miller here in Kenya and elsewhere produce a lot of rice husks per shift, and that becomes a menace, as you can see. Were it not for some of the initiatives that we've started, you would find heaps and heaps of rice husks here. So this is one of the partners, MRGM, that we are now linking with Safi Organics for the supply of rice husks to the youth carbonators, who we are now supporting to register a formal company to turn these husks into biochar, which now Safi Organics is turning into bio fertilizer, or basically biochar fertilizers. And this particular partnership also, as I said, we are very keen on sustainable rice production again. And we are working with the extension officers in this particular company or farmers cooperative to ensure that we are able to train farmers on efficient use of water and efficient use of soil nutrients, particularly N-based fertilizers. So what we are doing under this particular project on sustainable rice production and R4I CSA is to ensure that we have what we call rice legume integration by the farmers, so that when the farmers harvest their rice, they take back a leguminous crop for rotation, and we are rotating the rice with legumes like green grams, that is mung beans. We are rotating with soybeans. We are also using all those soybeans, green grams, and cowpeas to ensure, or even chickpeas, to ensure that when rice is harvested, that residual moisture, we are able to reuse that moisture by planting quickly the legumes, which now use that residual moisture, and they are very early maturing. So on the process of growing, they fix nitrogen, which means the farmer is able to use less N-based fertilizers in the subsequent season for rice farming. farmers, input suppliers, particularly the fertilizer companies that are very key for the nutrition part of the soils. Basically the policy makers, the government officials. We have with us here the rice promotion program at the Ministry of Agriculture. We have the county government represented here, and we're very happy to discuss with them, particularly on the issues of the use of the rice byproducts, which have been going to waste all this time, and particularly we are focusing on rice husks.
Ingekuwa vizuri zaidi isipokuwa moja kulingana na climate na ile cropping program ambayo tuko naye, kuna shida kidogo, ijapokuwa tunaweza jua venye tutafanya hiyo mpango, kwa sababu kawaida sisi tunakuwa na program ya cropping yenye inapangwa na National Irrigation Authority. Kwa kawaida mpunga tunapanda mwezi wa 8, tunatoa December, tunakwenda ratoon hapa tunatoa February. Hiyo ni msimu wa mvua, na these alternative crops sana zinafanya vizuri wakati wa jua. Wakati wa jua tunakuwa na mpunga kwa shamba. Iko na shida kidogo, ni lazima tutumie mvua, na wakati wa mvua mashamba yetu yanakuwa rocked, sometimes haifanyi mzuri, ijapokuwa kwa ile mashamba ambayo iko juu kidogo inasafanya hiyo mambo ya resilience, lakini kwa mashamba ambayo iko chini kidogo inakuwa na shida kidogo juu ya maji, kwa sababu wakati kuko na kiangazi tunafanya irrigation.
To the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, my name is Dr. Mary Mutende. I work in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives, the State Department of Crop Development. I'm currently heading the coordination in rice production in Kenya in the rice promotion program. Thank you. I must start by saying that the consumption of rice is increasing at a very high rate because of increase in population, urbanization, and also changing eating habits, especially among our youth who form the majority of the population. And so due to that, the gap is huge. We are reporting more than 75%.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So please check on your sound system. We can't hear you. If there
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rachel, we can hear you. You can maybe increase your volume.
Is this better?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Yes,
Very
Rachel,
good.
it's better without a video. Yep.
Okay. All right. No, for these first few minutes, unfortunately, okay. Someone says I stopped the video. Okay, that's fine. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I think we should start. It is 10 minutes past the hour of 2 p.m., which was our time for, okay, at least I can see people can hear me now. Donata, am I audible?
Yes, Rachel, you are.
Very good. All right, so I would like to start the meeting or the webinar by welcoming everyone. Thank you very much, Robert, and to people all around the East African community. I don't know if we have anyone joining us from outside the East African community, but you're all very welcome to this webinar. My name is Rachel Ajambo. I will be part of the moderators. We have about another 2 moderators who will be taking us through the various sessions of this webinar. And I would like to apologize, first of all, for the absence of our CEO. She got a very urgent business to attend to, actually meetings out of Uganda, and she's currently attending those meetings. But she sends her greetings and her appreciation for everyone who has joined us today while we discuss the topic of the role of regenerative agriculture in building sustainable farming and resilient food systems in East Africa. Just to set the scene and to welcome everyone, we will be looking at why are we doing this webinar and why now, and also looking at a few of our achievements. What have we been able to achieve? What have we learned in the area of implementing regenerative agriculture projects in the East African region? And for this, we will have a combination of our speakers. We have 4 speakers, and they will be introduced shortly. They will be introduced shortly by the various moderators. But I would like to, first of all, set the scene of why are we speaking about regenerative agriculture right now? Why is this topic important? And why should people listen about regenerative agriculture? All right, so we will be looking at various topics during this webinar. The first one, which will be quite key and delivered by Dr. Oyange Wilson, will be about upscaling best climate smart agriculture practices, supporting technology uptake by farmers, and also looking at a subtopic by one of our own staff about promoting best practices on climate smart agriculture. The second topic will be delivered by Ms. Denise Nyuhambwe, who from Rwanda, from Gardens for Health International in Rwanda, and she will be speaking about regenerative climate resilience techniques. And also we will have a paper about our reduce, reuse, recycle rice initiative for climate smart agriculture project, a case study. And then our last topic today, we'll be talking about what are the efforts of, what are the joint efforts of especially implementing climate smart agriculture practices with a twist on looking at what are the roles of private sector in ensuring the adoption of climate smart agriculture technologies in businesses today, and what is their role, are they relevant? And this one will be submitted by Mr. Andrew Ebong, who is the CEO of Bongomin Group Limited. So this will round out our speakers for the day. And then we will, of course, have a question and answer session that will be moderated we will encourage everyone to please share your questions about the topics that you hear, and of course about the deliberations. Our time together is very short, so we will request that our participants please write down the questions in the chat, and we will be picking some of those to be responded to by our partners. Back to the question of why are we looking at regenerative agriculture right now. As Kilimo Trust, we are implementing programs and projects on climate smart agriculture, and one of them is the reduce, reuse, recycle rice for climate smart agriculture, where we are now implementing the second phase of that program funded by ICARE. And we have generated a couple of lessons that we think are relevant, and this will be one of a series of webinars where we will be looking at the various topics of actually bringing climate smart agriculture and why it is relevant at this time, especially integrated with value chain development, that as Kilimo Trust we work on, not only in the various countries we implement, but also across the East African region, even where we don't have a physical presence. As Kilimo Trust, we are based in Kampala and Uganda, but we have implementing offices in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Kenya, and in Rwanda. And we are very seriously looking to also implementing programs and projects in the DRC due to opportunities that are opening there, and also in Southern Sudan. But all of us know how we are all grappling with the climate change effects. And in the recently concluded climate change conference, or COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, the issue of climate change could not be overemphasized, even though the results from that meeting are still under dispute and maybe under discussion. But the issue of the food systems and how these are being affected, especially on the African continent, cannot be overemphasized. And so we are looking at urgently working on through our various programs and projects in East Africa to see how do we implement the climate smart agriculture practices, but also link this now to ensuring food system security and also nutrition security for the smallholder farmers that we work with, and also the wider sector of private sector, but also other stakeholders who are interested in ensuring that as Africa we become food secure, but also food resilient. Right now, all African countries are experiencing food insecurity to varying degrees, where we are seeing that the worst of the climate change effects are being felt in Africa, while Africa actually it was finally under COP27 agreed that actually Africa contributes the least to climate change effects globally, but we are the ones that are actually experiencing the worst effects of climate change in our various countries. And these are already beginning to affect our food systems, both traditional food systems and also all the other food systems that we have in place, and of course, increasing and worsening the food and nutrition security, which was already not doing very well. And we are seeing that climate change is actually threatening to reverse all the productivity gains and all the gains that we had made in yield in the various food chains in the African continent. And therefore, of course, it was agreed also under COP 2017 that there is a serious lack of urgency to actually put in place the necessary resources to deal with climate change effects. And therefore, this webinar, against that premise, is where we are now trying to share what have we learned as we implement the various projects. We have implemented now 2 projects. One is the reduce, the reuse, and the recycle rice for climate smart agriculture, the phase 1 project, and the lessons are going to be shared from our phase 1. And we also implemented the Lake Smart Farms project in northern Tanzania on sorghum together with private sector partners over there. And they will actually also be very happy to share what have been our lessons. We also have a paper from Dr. Anna Temu, who is going to be looking at the role of youth in agriculture and how are they contributing to ensuring that women and youth are actually integrated in promoting regenerative agriculture practices in Tanzania. And she will be looking, of course, at the Sokoine University Graduate Entrepreneurs Cooperative Organization, which is the founder over there. And she will be sharing lessons that they have been implementing, but also looking at what is the way forward, especially to engage with the youth and women in promoting regenerative agriculture. Lastly, we will be looking at, and that will be rounded out by Andrew Ebong, again, one of our partners for the Reduce and Reuse Rice project, who will be sharing perspectives from the private sector. Why are we insisting on starting the conversation on regenerative agriculture, and what would the role of private sector be in greening our business? And so today we promise to share a wealth of information and knowledge, and we look forward to your full participation and also those questions once they come through. And with these few very many remarks, I would like to welcome everyone once again and to hand over now the moderation to my colleague, Joseph Orende, who will now moderate the first session of our webinar today, looking at what are the roles, what are the roles and what is the place of best climate smart agriculture practices and supporting these technology uptakes by smallholder farmers, and also ensuring that there is adoption of the same at farm level. So with those few remarks, I declare the webinar open, and I would like to invite my co-moderator, Joseph Orende, to invite our first speaker of the day, Dr. Wilson Oyange from the Ministry of Agriculture in Kenya, to take us through the first presentation of the day. Thank you very much, and over to you, Dr. Orende.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that very elaborate introduction and setting up the theme for the webinar today. I think it is very, very clear to us now, as now we get into it. I appreciate the audience who have joined, and I understand they are very much eager to gain so much from what we're going to share. So I'm honored to invite one of the most experienced and with the enormous expertise in agriculture, especially in rice value chain technologies. So, and today he will be taking us through the upscaling based climate smart agriculture practices and supporting technology uptake by farmers, especially promoting the best practices. And this is one of our collaborators, Dr. Wilson Oyange, who is the project manager, CADEPAP, Kenya, and also anchored in the Ministry of Agriculture. Daktari, I humbly welcome you to share what you have with the audience.
Thank you very much, Andrew, giving me all the names and all that. Ladies and gentlemen, the audience, good afternoon to you all. I think I'm humbled by the welcome remarks. First and foremost, I would want to make an observation from what I've listened to. From the background, one of the commentators has actually indicated one very interesting view, that is the demand for food is ever on the increase, and that the gap between what we demand and what we are producing is ever increasing. This actually points to the need actually to intensify agricultural production and productivity for the purposes of meeting the demand. And this keeps on shifting, and this is important. And one very important thing as we talk about climate change is that agriculture has actually a very important and significant environmental footprint. While it is impacted on by the climate, is also a very important contributor to climate change. Allow me now to exit the screen and try to share what I have. Just to allow me just to exit that kidogo, just a bit as I log in. Yes. Okay. And now I can. Yes. Can you see what I'm sharing? Is it available? Can you be able to see what I'm sharing?
Yeah, yes, I can see it from this end.
Yes, we can see
it.
Yes,
thank you very much. Now, I did indicate from the remark from the commentator is that we continue to demand more food in terms of the increasing population. And this is key and important because the ever-increasing population keeps on putting stress on the intensification that actually is arising from that which is concomitant with the same. Now, if we look at this is an element on intensification, that is the first photo, which is important based on the human activities, that is to meet the need. But what yet has actually happened out of this intensification, the extensive use of chemicals and herbicides has actually made the wild hemp weed, which initially was not in the cropping system, to be a pervasive kind of weed. Now, on the right, this is a situation in Kenya whereby the intensification of maize production and the monoculture agriculture system has actually necessitated widespread and kind of inherent problem now of striga, despite the striga tolerant varieties being having been bred. Now, on the lower down left, you have seen this is a current situation in Kenya. I think we had a very extreme weather in parts of Kenya where animals were dying, and I think they were going as low as Kenya shillings 500. This is quite low. Now, what we are talking about is the need to actually feed has actually raised the intensification of agriculture. Now, that said, it is important to note that agriculture modernization is actually a critical path to industrial and economic transformation. And this transformation, however, is threatened by devastating impacts of the climate change, and with countries and areas already experiencing prolonged periods of drought or excess rainfall or variable rainfalls. We are also experiencing temperature variations over the same. Now, we also have typhoons and such like. Now, this is what we are talking about and we are addressing now for the purposes of climate change. And we say this because there is need to sustain what we are producing. Now, coming to that, agriculture and land use changes are significant contributors to greenhouse gas. That is contributing about 15%. Rachel may have alluded to the fact that whereas Africa is contributing least in terms of the greenhouse and climate change, we are actually experiencing the global mass effect. Now, as the food demand expected to increase, that is with the increase in population, concomitantly, the devastating effects and the if human intervention or in terms of depletion of the ozone layer is actually increasing. Now, the global trend that we're actually experiencing in terms of the urbanization, technology development, have actually just further aggravated the situation. Now, what therefore happens is that agriculture and climate change are actually kind of connected intrinsically, yet still agriculture is impacted upon, and at the same time is also significantly contributing to the same. Now, what therefore this means is that there is need, therefore, for climate smart technologies. Now, why we say this is because when you look at agriculture in terms of the contribution, apart from other factors that may also affect the climate change, the human element is actually key and important. Now, therefore, when you talk about climate change, this is actually important because over the years, that is the 1990s was actually the very serious period. We had actually temperature increases of almost 1 degree Celsius, 0.85. Now, this is actually projected to increase to about 2 or so, 1.5 degrees by the year 2030. Now, this will have devastating effects. In fact, the current situation in Kenya is such that the 18 glacier levels at the peak of Mount Kenya, only 11 are remaining. Now, similarly, if the temperature are to increase to by 2 degrees Celsius in the tree growing areas, those areas will no longer be suitable for growing tea. Now, that really tells us that the climate change we are actually having and what we are talking about is real. It has both negative, but it has got negative effects on the regions in the world. But of course, Africa is most at risk of climate change. And why is it most at risk of climate change? Is because of the high dependency on natural resources and more so rain-fed agriculture. Now, there is therefore need to moderate and make intervention considering the significant contribution of the man's activity towards this kind of devastating effect, which is facing. And this is why everybody is now careful and we are moving to that. So now when we talk about climate change, in simple terms, we are looking at the variations in the weather parameters. We are looking at temperature, rainfall, humidity, over a persistent period of time. Now, this is why you are now experiencing more drier periods, higher temperatures, or excessive rainfall in parts, and where that happens, there are actually floods. And where there is less, we are having the drought and the phenomena you have actually seen in the first slide. But what causes this are either internal or external forces, which are phenomenal. But in addition, the anthropogenic human changes in the atmosphere or land use, actually what really is causing a lot and significant problem. Now, this is why we are making interventions in the area of intensified agricultural activities, livestock production, mechanization, construction, and the wetland destruction. This is very important to our activities and for the purposes of mitigating the effects. Now, based on these prolonged consequences, prolonged periods of drought, rainfall temperatures, there have been consequences which have been there. I think this is a common scene you've actually been able to experience in terms of extreme weather, floods or droughts, as you might have seen in the first photo. We are also having land degradation occasioned by cutting of trees and arising from the need to actually grow food crops that we have. There have also been increased incidences of pests and diseases. In fact, in the areas that is growing rice, like Mwea, Ahero, and West Kano, the migratory birds, the initially migratory birds, the Quelea, have become residential. This is because of the continued activity, and that actually poses the need to actually be able to relook at our mode of agriculture. Then we also have the other part of the industrial sector, the social and the physical infrastructure, actually causing a lot of damage and destruction as a consequence of that what we are talking about, the climate change. Now, that therefore brings us, what are we talking about? Climate smart agriculture, which is actually the noble solution and appropriate intervention to be able to mitigate the effects of the human beings in terms of activity. Now, climate agriculture is a triple win. Triple win in the sense that we are sorting out what we have actually been able to cause, and it's triple in the sense of sustainability in terms of the mode of production. We are increasing agricultural production, but in a sustainable way, so that whatever activity we are doing and whatever method we are implementing are actually friendly to the environment. Now, we also build resilience in terms of agricultural production, so that we look at if it is varieties or practices which actually are able to tolerate the environmental conditions and situations. But apart from that, finally, whatever activities we are actually implementing should be able to minimize greenhouse gas. And we talk about the methods like the use of alternate wetting and drying, AWD, or intermittent irrigation, that actually frees the soil, regenerates the soil health, and really reduces greenhouse gas emission. Now, that is what we are talking about as climate smart agriculture. That has the triple win: sustainability, resilience, and minimization. Now, whatever name that can be used, many do exist. We talk about regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, nature inclusive farming, carbon farming, whichever, but it's all geared towards the sustainability, resilience, and reduction of the greenhouse gas. Now, the undesirable consequences of human activities we are talking about, this is also part of what we are talking about as what contributes to the climate change. Now, we are talking about the technology and the mechanization, the chemical use we are talking about, human activities, the agrochemicals that we intensify actually be able to use. Now, this is what we are talking about in terms of undesirable human. So we are saying the undesirable consequences are leading to this: the mono-intensified cropping and the weed pest problem, the long prolonged droughts that actually affect livestock, and the droughts that are now affecting the rice area. So these are where now we want to make intervention as the undesirable consequences we feel can be able to mitigate. Now, climate smart therefore works with nature to improve soil fertility and is integrating cropping system that actually maintains or rejuvenates soil health. On the future framework, it improves crop production on the positive aspect as it restores soil fertility. And in this method, we are reducing tillage using cover crops, mulching, compost manure, agroforestry, and the use of native species for the restoration of biodiversity. Now, at the end of it all, finally, in terms of sustainability, we improve the soil health, sequester carbon, and increases biodiversity. This is what we are talking about as climate smart, to be able to mitigate the effects of what we have. Now, in this climate smart agriculture, we are emphasizing, or it emphasizes low external input on farm, that is with respect to agro inputs, that is reduced pesticide, reduced tillage, cover cropping use, and using technologies that can actually be able to improve agronomic practices like tolerant varieties, crop diversification, but in addition, it's allowed for science-based technical precision agriculture and policies and institutional framework with the financing mechanism that actually serve as what we call cross-cutting issues. And this is where we normally have had a lot of problems in terms of support and implementation. Now, with this, when we look at climate smart agriculture and conventional agriculture, on a comparative basis, they can be looked at in terms of productivity, water use efficiency and greenhouse gas emission, biodiversity, and soil composition. Now, in terms of productivity, climate smart agriculture optimizes on production while reducing on the devastating effect. On the contrary, the conventional agriculture will normally maximize on production. That is meeting the needs to be maximized, but of course with the negative effects. Looking at biodiversity, climate smart agriculture enhances, encourages, and improves biodiversity because it works with the nature. However, conventional agriculture is destructive to biodiversity because we are talking about intensification and monoculture kind of system. On water use efficiency, climate smart optimizes and enhances efficiency in terms of water. We are talking about practices like AWD, which are actually efficient and of course helps in the reduction of greenhouse gases. Now, in terms of soil composition, this is with biodiversity, climate smart agriculture actually enhances soil composition, which is actually good for sustainability. So therefore, in climate smart system of agriculture, it sustains soil health in an organic production system that actually relies on an ecosystem rather than adverse input use. It is a natural way and combines innovation with the tradition and science. However, it may be more labor intensive considering the inputs and the methods. Now, if you look at conventional agriculture, this has actually evolved through the Green Revolution, whereby it emphasizes on maximization of production through use of intensified agricultural system or methodologies, like using synthetic to maximize yield, synthetic products, inorganic fertilizers, GMOs, and other natural products that is geared towards meeting the ever-increasing population, but of course, with a devastating effect. Now, it also has production efficiency. It maximizes on the potential yields and meets the need within a short time, but actually grossly compromises on environmental integrity that we normally are worried about. The production is beneficial to the food security system, but actually the maintenance is a challenge, and actually this requires constant maintenance, unlike climate smart agriculture. Now, generally, for ease of implementation, normally it involves a lot of monocropping. This is the major problem now we are having, because it also generates some weeds which were previously, or some pests which were previously not a problem, and they have become plausible or pervasive in terms of their activities. Uniformity guaranteed, but chemical use is high, but with unintended effects. So that has actually brought a lot of, now we are talking about other diseases, human health catastrophe that we are now experiencing because of agriculture. Now, for this reason of conventional human beings have become careful, and now we are reviewing our system and looking at the solution to this environmental issues lies with climate smart agriculture. Now, why should farmers adopt climate smart agriculture? Now, based on what has been advanced and what the commentator initially had actually put, climate change is real, and agriculture is a major contributor to climate change. 19 to 25% of the greenhouse gas emission is from agriculture. So while it's actually contributing, it is also impacted upon seriously. And of course, with the ever increasing population, there is actually need for people to adopt a sustainable method. And this is what we are trying to embrace. Now, similarly, it is significantly affected by climate. I may have mentioned that. And I did say climate change is real. We are now experiencing increasing frequency of extreme weather. And finally, the ever-increasing population demand food, but this food should be produced in a sustainable manner or a production system so that we can be able to continue and get what we need, rather than maximizing and then bringing it down. Now, based on this, Kilimo Trust is talking about reduce, reuse, recycle rice initiative for climate change, reducing intensification in terms of chemical mechanism, mechanized or mechanical use. And when this is done, we are reducing the greenhouse gas emission, promoting cover crop and alternate wetting and dryness, and together with crop rotation or alternate to be able to improve health for the purposes of sustainability. In reuse, particularly in the rice sector, all this, we are looking at reusing the rice straw, making compost and vermicomposting for the purposes of recycling to be able to improve the soil health, enhance biodiversity, and create sustainability. Farmers in Mwea irrigation scheme who previously had done sequential cropping after rice have reported that the weed problem has actually reduced, unlike in the past or in other cropping, monoculture cropping system for rice. Now, similarly, when you look at recycle, Kilimo Trust and the climate smart agriculture, husk is converted to biochar, and biochar is converted to manure, and manure is actually reused or recycled into the fields, and this is actually very important. The straw is actually used to make compost or vermicomposting, and this is used as manure and applied back in the farm as part of the recycle phenomena. Now, the husk is also being used as a utility stove, and this actually helps in fuel. Now, based on this, husk is not a problem anywhere in most parts of the rice growing areas in Kenya. However, the straw still remains a challenge because of the compromising alternative use as livestock feed. But actually that raises the need, because right now, looking at the soil health, there is also need for intervention. Now, with this, we are talking about reduce, reuse, recycle rice initiative as part of the climate change mitigating intervention arising from the man's activities which are contributing significantly to the devastating effects of the climate change. Now, based on that, if you see your photo, please don't worry. I would want to say this is a field of sequential cropping in one of the irrigation schemes in Kenya. This is also the field of compost and vermicomposting in the field for the purpose of the climate change. And climate change is real. We have actually all experienced it in terms of differences and variation persistent over the time in terms of the weather parameters. With this, I want to say thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. I think we've really gained a lot of knowledge from this. I think our audience know what climate smart agriculture is, regenerative agriculture, the methodology mechanism, the applications in relation of conventional, also the mechanism that normally apply, and what conventional does in comparison to the climate smart agriculture. It is very encouraging that that is the direction we want to take with all the stakeholders on board. I think it is achievable. So with this, I think I want to pass the baton back to my co-hoster, Dr. Rachel. Please take up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wayange, and thank you as well, Joseph, for moderating us for this session. We would now like to invite our colleague, Robert Mwaluseke, from our Tanzania project on the Lake Smart Farms project that we implemented on sorghum in northern Tanzania, to share a few lessons from our project that we implemented, that we just closed this September. Over to you, Robert, to share those lessons that we learned from implementing that sorghum project together with Musoma Food and in Shinyanga area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and the team. Once again, good afternoon, and thank you, team, for joining our webinar this afternoon. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, Robert, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, as Rachel has introduced me, my name is Robert Mwaluseke. In the field, they are calling me Chief. Yes, and I like to be called Chief. I'll be presenting our case of Kilimo Trust, of our LSF project on the role of regenerative agriculture in building sustainable farming and food system in East Africa. Well, Kilimo Trust has been implementing climate smart agriculture project since then, and actually I am lucky to be involved in most of these projects. And please, within these very few minutes I have, allow me just to mention the project we have been implementing that really cover the issue of climate smart and of course addresses the regenerative agriculture. One of the projects that we presented was Sikia, Sagot Agriculture, Sagot integrated knowledge and information for agriculture. This was actually a 2-year project that was also implemented in Mbeya, and I'm glad to see Stephen Gardadins all the way from Netherlands to our webinar today. These are the funders of this project. It was also addressing the issue of climate smart agriculture, especially on the what we call available information on the fingertips to the farmers, and how do they act accordingly when they are doing the production in the farms. Well, we also implemented the project called the IMAP, Iringa Mitigation, Adaptation, and Productivity for Climate Smart Agriculture in Iringa. I'm glad also to see our colleague Ricolto. They have joined this webinar today. We are also addressing the climate smart issues in Iringa, specifically working on the reduction of carbon emission gases, on the issue of water use efficiencies and all that. All these were meant to address the climate issues, but specifically looking on the regenerative agricultural practices that will actually make our soil, our agricultural field being productive, not only today, but also for the future generations. Now, coming to the case of LSF project, this was actually the acronym of the project called Lake Zone Smart Farm Project, and it is a resilience project that we were implementing in Lake Zone. We all know Lake Zone is one of the areas in Tanzania that is vulnerable to climate change, and they have been doing monoculture practices quite for a long time because of the climate effect issues. Now we have seen the depressions actually in the soil nutrients. It's also in the climate effect has been hitting this zone quite extensively. So we have actually tried to address this regenerative agriculture to build the sustainable farming and the food system in the lakes. The project was actually funded by AGRA, by UNDP through AGRA, and as you can see, I will not talk more of this. The project goal was actually to contribute to competitive and inclusive green transformation of smallholder farmers. As you can see, the objective, we had 3 objectives, but look on the 3 on objective number 3. The objective number 3 was to increase capacity of smallholder farming households in agricultural system to better prepare for and adapt to shock and stress. This is actually the major challenge in the lens, the shock and stress. You may just see all the sign that rain is coming, but it's no rain. You may just be on the rainy season, but wait the rain for over 2 months, and we have witnessed that. So we have actually seen this as a major program, and we actually selected few districts to just kind of like pilot on the regenerative agricultural practices, specifically. I mean, on the climate smart agricultural practices, specifically on the regenerative agriculture. And this project was actually implemented in Shinyanga and Simiyu, as you can see in the map, with our colleague Musoma Food. So the main implementer in the field was Kilimo Trustee, actually working with the main off-taker, Musoma Food. I will not talk much on the output. Let me go straight to the regenerative agricultural practice. Among the challenges that we have seen actually in Let's was the raw use of improved labor sorghum productivity, because the harvest issues, inadequate access to inputs and so forth. But the main was the high soil fertility depression rates due to monocrop. I mentioned this. If you go to Lake Zone, you'll be amazed. The same plot is being grazed with animals, and of course at the same plot they are expecting to produce the crops, and we actually expect that this plot will be producing the crops not only for today, even for future generations. Now the question was, how do we maintain the soil quality of these plots for our future generation? We all know we are expecting to be about 9+ billions of people in the world in the coming few years, probably 2050, and all these will depend food from Africa. And where are these land where we do wish that we will be producing? It's this land we have. So you can see now from the photos, this is the land we are talking of, increasing productivity and feeding the coming and increasing generation of this world. Now you can see. Now the issue was, how do we now address? How do we train these farmers to do the regenerative agricultural practices, to make use of this land you are seeing in the photos here, productive not only for today, even for the coming generation, the future and the future world. Now, yes, but there are a lot of the problem that we have seen in this list. Another was actually unreliable market for sorghums, yes, inadequate knowledge, but major prevailing erratic rain patterns and global warming that really require farmers to diversify and adopt resilience crop varieties at larger scale. So we had to really look at it in a very critical way. We had our partners whom we were implementing, including Summer Food and the Shinyanga LGAs and farmer groups that we implemented. Now, what are the practices that we introduced, and we have seen that they are really working on actually maintaining this organ of regenerative agriculture? One was crop rotation. We had to kind of like introduce the concept of crop rotation to improve the soil health and reduce the need of fertilizer, industrial fertilizers. Yes, wells. At some point, we are, kind of like struggling to balance between the declaration, especially on the fertilizer used in the field. But again, how do we now put this soil productive, not only for today, even for tomorrow? Then there is a need to improve the soil health and, of course, reduce the need of industrial fertilizer if possible. So we had to train the farmers on crop rotation, how to, rotate their field with the leguminous crop, especially mung beans. Mung beans is one of the crop that is doing very well in the lake zone. So we had to train them on how now to do the crop rotation with the mung beans. But again, we have to actually introduce the concept of the cover crops. We know how the cover crops will help to manage the soil and maintain the soil moisture while increasing soil fertility and quality. So the project have to introduce now when producing the sorghum, but again, putting the cover crops, especially the cowpeas, that will have to maintain the soil moisture. And of course, conserve the soil not only for today, but again for the future. But also we have to introduce the concept of conservation farming, which actually we majorly looked at what we call zero tillage. Now, this was actually aiming to prevent the soil loss by applying this zero tillage and minimizing the soil disturbances. This will make sure the permanent cover crop the soil cover is being maintained. We also looked at the compositing. We know the lake zone was actually the grazing regions. Actually have quite a number of animals, although they are rearing them in a way that to accumulate the farmyard manure to the composite. Sometimes it was a bit challenging, but again we had to introduce this concept so that we increase the soil ability to retain moisture and improve the soil health and the plant as well. Not only for the current farming generation, but again for the future generation. Now, what was the method we used was actually to train the farmers. As you can see, the group of youth happily being trained now in the Atu districts on all the aspects of GAPS, GPHH, and business skills to build this regenerative agricultural concept in the mind of the youth, so that when they are, the youth are the future generation as well. So when they are doing the farming, they will be, like applying this and maintaining our soil. You can see the soil here when our extension officer was training the concept. The soil is completely dry. It is actually showing also these signs of soil erosion and all that. So there was a high need of actually training farmers, especially on these regenerative agricultural concepts, to make sure that we combat this climate change effect. Now, these are the results. You can see the farms were a bit amazing. You can see one of our demo plots in Shinyanga, how it looks like. It was kind of like, wow, wow. Even the farmers were like, is this possible? We say, yes, why not? If you follow the concepts and you really maintain what we have taught you to do, these are the results you can achieve. These are some of the farmers, and you can see the yield in most of our demos that we did in Shinyanga. So we had actually learned quite a lot, and I'm told that my time is up. Thank you very much for your attentions, and welcome. Shall there be any questions? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Robert, for that expose on the LSF project and what we have been able to learn. There are quite a number of questions that are coming through, so let me hand over to Salum to take us through the next couple of presentations before we open up the floor for questions. Please keep those questions coming through, and we will be able to have some time to address them. Salum, we will need to ask everyone to keep the time, because I see our time is not our friend. Over to you, Salum. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. My name is Salum Hamadi Saka. I'm the officer in charge, Kilimo Trust Tanzania. So I'm taking through this second set, actually this
Salum?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking while muted. Sorry. So my name is Salum Hamadi Saka. I'm the officer in charge, Kilimo Trust Tanzania. And I'm taking through this second session. And in this second session, we are going to have two presenters here. So we are going to have Dines Niobahwe, and also we are going to have Joseph Oret. Just by starting by Dines Niobahwe, she's a crop production. She's a crop production expert and international certified premature designer. And she has done the course from Tanzania Permaculture Institute, and now she's a certified international premature designer by Restoration Agriculture Development, Mainspring, and the Valley Foundation. She's from Guardian for Health International. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome her to do the presentation, and the presentation, after her presentation, will be on the regenerative climate resilience technique. So you are most welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be part of this session. And as Robert said, we are going to talk about the regenerative farming techniques and practices. So can you allow me to share my screen? Hi, Robert. Can I get the permission to share my screen for my presentation, please?
Okay, just 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, Dennis, can you try to project?
Okay, let me try. It seems like I'm disabled to share the screen.
Can I do that for you on my end?
Okay.
Let me do that for you.
So while waiting for Donata to share the screen, yes, Donata?
We can't see the presentation.
Sorry?
Donata. Yeah, just a minute. I think it's just taking a little bit some time, but let me redo it.
So, but while waiting Donata to share the screen, we are going to talk about the regenerative agriculture techniques, and I'm glad that the first presenters was tackled on each and every techniques, and I think will be somehow short. But before that, we had that in 2014, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization Forum marked the World Soil Day. That was due to the topsoil, which was degrading day after day. And the research showed that within 6 years, all the topsoil can be degraded. So from that, we are going to talk about the techniques that we can adopt regarding the regenerative farming. At the starting, we're gonna go through the principles and the techniques of the regenerative farming. Thereafter, we will see how it can help to mitigate the climate change effect on the food system. So Donata, thank you. You have been able to share your screen. Can you have the full screen shared? That can be great. Yeah, so on the first slide, you may see different kinds of the techniques showed on this screen. Yeah, we have been in East Africa or across the continent, we have been adopting some of the regenerative climate resilience techniques. We know some of us used to do it by knowing that it's about the regenerative farming and others not. So, but before talking about the principles of the regenerative farming, I can't go without talking a little bit about the ethics, because it's on the center of each and every principle. We are directed by 3 main principles of the regenerative farming. Actually, it's the next slide, Donata. So first of all, we are going to look about the care of the earth before going to the regenerative farming. We are going to see how we need to consider the care of the earth, because we need the earth to be providing for all the life system to continue and multiply. This is to care about the soil, the forest, and the water, and so on. And the second ethic is to care about the people. So we need to continue the provision of what the people need to access the resources. And then we need to talk about the fair share. About the fair share, we need to set up the limit to the population and to the consumption. By governing our own needs, we can set resources aside about regarding to this principle, this ethic. Now we can jump into the principles of regenerative farming. Yeah, the first principle is talking about observe and interact. Here we are talking about the nature, because we believe that in the nature is the best teacher that we can have. Now, for the first principle, we need to observe and interact with the nature, see what it is the nature is providing. There is a proverb said that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The second principle, you need to catch and store energy. It has been long, we have been using the renewable resources, and we have been overusing it, coming back on the green revolution. And at this time, we need to see the resources that we have, how we can manage to have the best use of it. Yeah, I'm talking about the sun, the wind, the runoff, and so on. And then the best way to catch and store those energies, we need to look on how to store into the soil, to have fertile soil, to limit the drought and other climate changes issues. So we need to consider the use of the resources at this time, but also keep in mind our future generations. The third principle is talking about to obtain the yield. So you can't walk on an empty stomach. That means, so we need to do the regenerative farming, but first of all, we can't plant the forest for the grandchildren if we have not have enough to eat by today. So we need to think about self-reliance at all levels. And the fourth principle is talking about to apply self-regulation and accept the feedback. In the nature, we do always have the feedbacks that can be positive or negative. So keep doing what we are having as self-regulations. That means to put into place different techniques regarding to the regenerative farming. And when it comes the positive feedback, that's okay. For instance, if we have been able to obtain the yield, that's the positive feedback from the principle number 2, to catch and store energy. And when it comes the negative feedback, you need to bear it too and look on how to use it for improving your system. The principle number 5 is talking about the use and value renewable resources and services. So all of us, we know that we have plenty of renewable resources that have been overused in the past. So at this time, we need to make the best use possible of the renewable resources. Just we need to consume what we need, not to over consume or not to use the things that are really over what we need to for daily life, because we need to think about the future generation. So we need to be efficient with the use of renewable resources and services. And number 6, we need to produce no waste. I'm glad that Kilomo Trust, you have a project thinking about reduce, reuse, and recycle. So for the regenerative farming, we need to see the waste as a resource, as an opportunity, not a challenge, and see how we can use it. We have been talking, for instance, can talk about saying, oh, the kitchen peels, the waste from the kitchen, those are the waste, we can manage it, but can be used for the compost. We are talking about the plastics, but the best to be used for the container gardens and so on. The number 7, we need to design from patterns to details. For this principle number 7, that means we need to see the nature as a whole, because the complex system that work tend to evolve from the simple one that work too. So we need to find the appropriate pattern for this principle to talk about finding an appropriate pattern to design more important than sending all the details of the elements to the system. If you find a pattern that is working, that's okay. You don't need to go into the details of each and every element to the system. About the number 8, to integrate rather than segregate. So things are working better when they're together. So you need to think about the thing which is serving, and any other thing can accept the products from another element. That means everything that you will be finding in the nature, you need to see how to integrate rather than segregate. The number 9, you need to think about the use of small and slow solutions. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. That means when you go to the nature and you find something, you need to start small, and then you can extend later. For instance, you can find the issue of pest into your field, and you say, I'm going to bring up the natural enemies, and you bring a lot, you do it on a big scale, and it failed, it can cause another issue. That means you need to start slow and slow. The number 10, use and value diversity. Yeah, in the nature, we do have a lot of biodiversity. So make the best use of it, be efficient, use each diversity at its maximum, and then use edge and value the marginal. So any short change that may happen to the nature can contribute to the system stability or instability. So don't need to think about the marginals only, think about the land, think about the ocean and so on, or you think about little things like microorganisms and so on. So nothing needs to be left behind. And then the number 12 of the principles, creatively use and respond to changes. For this principle, I can give an example. It has been mass mobilization about the use of those trees which are fixing nitrogen to the soil. And most of the countries and most of the regions are planting plenty of it at the end of the day. So the planting of fruit trees has been reduced considerably. Then after, as to respond to the change, there comes the techniques to prune or to reduce the number of those trees for the forage and for the composting and so on. And then that gives the solution to that problem. Now we can jump to the practices. I was telling that the first presenters will talk more about the practices. So here, to be successful for the regenerative farming, you need first of all think about the optimization of water catchment. Here I'm talking about the runoff. We need to create the source and dams across the contour lines. This is applicable in each field, small scale or large scale. Because most of the African countries, we have the regular rains. But I can have an example of Rwanda. We used to have like almost 7 to 8 months of the rain. But when it comes to the 4 or 5 months without the rain, most of the things are stuck. We have no water. So here we need to look, how can we store, how can we catch at the optimum the rainfall? And then after catching the rainfall to the source and dams, we need to think about planting the perennial crops on those dams and soils, of course, to use the surplus of the water, but also to keep the system to be consistent. Then to think about the irrigation. But the irrigation, you need to store the water from the rain. Yeah, and there are other techniques like harvesting rainwater from the roof and others, but the simple practice that can be applicable for each and every farmer can be to optimize the water runoff. Then we need to think about the tree. The tree is really a big source. We need to maximize each energy transaction. As you know, the trees can provide the biomass, wine spring, bricks, and others. That means you need to plant plenty of trees. Of course, we need to think about its interaction with the rest of the crop. But after having the source on the banks, you can plant plenty of trees, having shrubs, medium and tall trees, agroforestry mixed with fruit trees, and so on. Another big practice to build the healthy soil. This can be done in several ways. We can go the composting. We can compost, like make compost pile using those agroforestry, which are nitrogen fixing, can pile with the dry crop waste, which is high into carbon, because for that compost pile, we are dealing with carbon and nitrogen ratio. And also we can mix with the livestock manure and so on. But also we can do the vermicomposting, where there are worms which are not climate friendly and which can decompose very quickly to provide us with the manure. We need to have the cover cropping. I can't repeat this because the previous speakers was talking about the cover cropping. We need to reduce the tillage because it's disturbing the microorganisms, the decomposers into the soil. We need to think about different techniques of the bed building. For instance, the double dug bed, second bed are the good practice to hold water for a long time. And we need to look for the mulching and also for other agronomic practice which can build the soil. And also to plant the trees, it's the main technique to maintain the soil fertility too. And then we need to look for the integrated pest management. At this stage, when we talk about the integrated pest management, most of us, we are thinking about the big scale farmers, but we need to look for the medium and small too. So here I gave an example of how to make a homemade pesticide, which can be used mainly to fight against the pests which used to attack the vegetables. We think about intercropping is a good technique also to limit the pests. and beneficial insects. We do have some medicinal plants. When we are putting on the edge of the field, some insect can't penetrate into your field. For the in-season care practices, when you have been preparing your land correctly, if you are having planting and transplanting for some crops which pass to the nursery, and you are doing mulching, applying water and so on, if you are doing well, all those practices is the best way to control your pests and diseases. Here we are looking for the promotion of indigenous crops, which are highly resistant, not only to pest and disease, but also to the climatic shocks. For other techniques, we need to look for the post-harvest handling practice. Here, we're looking for the storage, because we are talking also about the food security and the seed saving. We can't conclude the practice without saying about the livestock integration, because it's key. When we are building a system in regenerative farming, we need to think about a kind of symbiosis. So we'll be having the livestock, they'll be providing the manure, you will grow your crops, and then the crops will provide the forage to the livestock too. Now, can regenerative agriculture mitigate climate change effects on food security? So here we can see how is the status of food security. I took an example of Rwanda. This has been sourced from the Comprehensive Food Security and Vulnerability Analysis Survey, which has been done in 2018 and another in 2021. This is done with the collaboration of the Ministry of Agriculture, the World Food Programme, and the World Bank. And in 2018, 81.3% of the household was food secure, and it has been reduced to 1.9% in 2021, as you may see on the chart. And then looking at the minimum dietary diversity, Donata, you can go to the slide with food security indicators. I was talking about the status of food security here in Rwanda, where it has been the household which were food secured have been reduced up to 1.9%. From 2018 onwards. Donata, can you go to the slide? Okay, thank you so much. I was saying that I took an example of Rwanda, and looking at the food security, 1.9% of the household have been reduced.
Hello, Denise, we cannot hear you anymore. Denise?
Hello? Can you hear me?
We had lost you. Yes, if you could kindly summarize, we are out of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I was thinking about to see how the regenerative agriculture can contribute to mitigate the climate shocks and contribute to the food security. That was the status of the food security. I took the example of Rwanda. It has been reduced over the year, and even the minimum dietary diversity have been somehow increased in 2021. But I'm going to show you how the adoption of those techniques contributed to the food security. For the next slide, you will see a case of Gardens for Life International, where there has been the adoption of different regenerative farming techniques at the household level. And from that means before the intervention and after 1 year of the intervention, there have been really an improvement on the adoption of those techniques. And then as a result, you will see that the crop diversity as well as the minimum dietary diversity increased as some of the indicators to the food security. So now we do have some key success which brings to the adoption of those techniques at the household level. We need to consider the women and men, because the women are the implementers and the men are the decision makers. As a challenge for everyone, how is the adoption of regenerative farming methods in our respective countries? Is this something that warrants raising a large flag? Thank you so much for your attention. Any question and comment, you are welcome. Thank you, Donata.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dennis, for a very good detailed presentation. So I hope participants, you are keeping the question rolling in the chat. So just after this session, we will be picking up the questions, and I think now the team will be able to respond. So now we need to go to another session, to another presenter. So here is the Kilimo Trust project. Actually, it's being called the Reduce, Reuse, Recycle, Rice Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture, and is the case study for what we are presenting today about the regenerative climate resilience technique. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome just to welcome Joseph Orende, who is our technical staff and who is specializing on the plant breeding and the genetics as well. So you are most welcome. You are most welcome, Joseph.
Thank you, Honorable Salum. So introduction has been made. That is fine. So Salum, I don't know, will I share from my side or it will be done from their side?
Yes, if you can share from if you can share from your side.
And then that's fine. I'm disabled, so you can enable me.
Okay, Donata, kindly assist.
Yeah, so with the process of enabling the projection, so Reduce, Reuse, Recycle, the Rice Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture was a massive project that started as a pilot for 2 years, beginning March 2020 all the way to February 2021, and it was operated. Yeah,
it's done. I think just try. Let's see.
Yeah. Can be seen?
Not yet.
Am I visible?
We can hear you, you're visible, but the presentation is not yet there.
Uh-huh.
Donata, maybe you can share from your side. Is that okay?
Okay, well, let me do that for you.
Yeah, please.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. So that's fine. So let's move to the third slide. Yeah, fine. Next. Yeah, so as I was explaining, I'm honored to be part of the technical team for Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Rice Initiative for Climate Smart Agriculture. So the project, as I indicated, It started as a pilot operating in 2 countries. That is from March 2020 to February 2022. And it was operating in Kisumu, Busia, Kirinyaga counties in Kenya, and Butaleja, Tororo districts in Uganda. We proceed. So it mainly covered the 3 objectives. And this one was to promote the use of innovative technologies and manage the practices for sustainable rice farming systems, increase productivity in volumes, quality, and value amongst smallholders, farmers, ensuring sustainability. And it targeted to increase the productivity for at least 10% from what was existing through the use of sustainable rice practices in that case. And the third main objective was to strengthen the resilience to shocks that the farmers and other stakeholders could be facing within the rice value chains. Next, Donna. Next.
It's on.
Yeah, and then, so to achieve this, the project adopted the various innovations to ensure that various activities were to take place, and mostly under production. So the mechanisms that were used were to conserve the soil, increase productivity, but also take care of the environment in that case. So we are looking mostly how we enable the farmers on the farm. And this one was to be done through considering what are the factors that can increase production of rice based on the low productivity that was being observed, and what are the byproducts that come from the rice and are being neglected. How can they be converted into the better use in that sense? So the innovations that we were adopted within the period of pilot was we adopted some prototypes that would use the rice husk as a byproduct, which was being viewed as a menace around the millers and also being blown by wind and also water through clogging the drainage. We thought that we would come up with the rice husk prototypes, partnering with fabricators, one in Uganda and one in Kenya. So that was done, and it was a success. A super burner was also done just to provide that ability to have the higher energy provision during the cooking. So there was the bioeffective microbes. This one were being used as a mechanism because, transiting from a rice season to the next, the straws take too long to decompose. So we were partnering with a part of our stakeholders to find a mechanism in which it would be done within 6 to 8 weeks. So we found out through the validation the bioeffective microbes could do this. So we were able to assist the farmers transit from the harvesting season to the next season within 6 to 8 months, while they used to take not less than 8 months in this case. In the utility of the rice straws, the vermicomposting was advanced, and it was taken so positively. And within it, there was production of vermijuice, which the farmers gladly use as foliar feed. And we also, through validation, through our research institutions, we found out that it's also an insecticide, which is affordable, natural, and it is being used already. We also assisted the farmers to adopt the fertilizer, the proper use of inputs. That is through the precision placement of fertilizer in their farms so that it is effectively used in only the critical amounts. So there was also the biochar gasification. So to reduce the menace that the millers were facing, we thought that it would be necessary to convert the rice husks into the biochar, and when fortified, this one became organic fertilizer, which we will see that it provided good results in improving the crop yield on the farm, the soil, physical and biological activities. So there was also a technology adopted about the agricultural wage worker model. So this one we were assisted by our collaborator in Uganda, the Bungomin. So it enables the seasonal workers on the farm to be skilled and also to work as managers of the crop within the crop season, so that the entrepreneur also has some time to concentrate on other things. We found out that one of the mechanisms that the farmers were really suffering was that one of unleveled ground where they would not balance the flow and maintenance of water. So it was necessary to enable them adopt this mechanism to help manage the water. So, and we also, there was a mechanization that was introduced, especially in the Kisumu County, where the farmers were only long to harvest their crop by sickles, and now they use the combine harvester, effectively harvesting more within short period of time and more from each unit of land.
Yeah, just 2 minutes, please. Just 2 minutes to end up.
Fine. Next, Donata.
Is that it?
These were farmers, prototype fabricators, who are product handlers who are converting the husks into the biochar. We also had the fast food vendors who benefited from the prototype making. Next. Next. So these were the results that we realized from this implementation. So when we initiated the project, there was need to do capacity building among various stakeholders. So we were able to train 8,554 farmers, and through the sustainable rice production practices, and among them 6,126 were able to adopt these practices, and they went ahead to put 2,624 hectares of land into sustainable production practices. We were able to assist the farmers through the vermicomposting, setting 2 vermicomposters in Kenya and 10 in Uganda. And through this, we were able to convert the straws worth 25,000 tons. And 3,720 farmers were involved in this, which was a large coverage with it. To improve the productivity on the farm station, the introduction of rice legume was done. And in this, we were able to assist the farmers plant and harvest 292,000 metric tons within those the regions of practice. And within these 2 years, 1,870 farmers participated in that rice legume integration. Conserving the environment, we are also able to engage the fabricators who fabricated the GCOs we've seen, and 140 households were able to benefit from this. Donata, next. So the organic fertilizer, biochar, we were able within the period of 2 years to assist the entrepreneurs to convert rice husk into 711 metric tons, which were conveyed to the farmers, different farmers, and in this case, 3,850 farmers in rice growing schemes and the surrounding were able to use this biochar. We realized an increase in the production of 20% in comparison to what the farmer used to get from that. And that was just like 2 seasons. So this encouraging that if it is made a practice, this might rise even to 50% in that. And it brings more income, it improves the soil and the related. So as I said, there was mechanization that was adopted. 307 youths were able to develop enterprises, get gainful employment. In this case, next. Next, Donata. Yeah, so you see the rice byproducts being used here. Yeah, you successfully used the rice husk as the media for production of mushroom, which we've done. And in one season, with the 3 groups, we've been able to produce 300 kilos of mushroom, and that is what the 2,100 US dollars. Using rice husk and jam, we were able to support the black soldier production, which is the animal feed ingredient. We can see the prototype of which now the fast food vendors are using, and this one was able to cut their cost on fuel energy by 70% when they are doing the work. And from to the extreme top right, we can see the conversion of rice husk into the biochar, which is fortified to form the fertilizer. And on the lower right, you see the alternate water usage in the rice production, where you only supply water when at the critical stages of the growth, so you don't flood the field all through. And we found that this one increased production, and the irrigation systems were able to manage their water very nicely, and in fact supply to many farmers. As opposed to supply all through the season. Next, Donna, next.
It's there.
So from what we learned from the pilot, we had several areas and aspects that we are now implementing in the expansion scale. In this case, we are looking at upscaling of the number of the farmers. In this case, the validation of the products, the expanding on the rice legume integration. In this case, accelerating the utility of the byproducts through improved and more encouraged fabrication of these prototypes, and supporting more entrepreneurs into the rice value chain. In this case, so that is expanding the mushroom production, the biochar, and encouraging their use. Next. Donna, next. Next, Donna.
It's there. Seeing it?
Yeah. So it was because of this team that the project was possible. So we just pass our thanks and regards to Kilimo Trust Management, CEO and team, the country representative, especially the technical team in R4ICSA, and the country leaders. The quality assurance team was very key in this. Research and academic institutions supported us in validating the products. The Ministry of Agriculture provided infrastructure on the ground in the field where we were able to leverage on, and the affiliate enterprises made it possible, because without their contribution, we would not have had the prototypes, the biochar, and the other aspects. If a foundation did not fund, it would have been stuck. So we pass our regards to all this team. So thank you, the audience. That was a bit of it within the regenerative agriculture section in R4ICSA. Back to Robert.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph Orende, for the detailed, actually very good presentation. So I think actually this marked the end of the second speaker session, and also I think before proceeding with the next set of the next set of speakers, I think we have several questions that are coming up in the chat, and we would like to take this opportunity to go through the question and to get some of the responses. Yeah, before we proceed. So the first question is about the climate smart adoption requirement. actually some of the investment and the minimum tillage, for example, may need some of the implements. Controller grazing is the challenge for those with many animals. Lentena in Kenya also limit these investments. So is there any work going around this area? So this question is coming from Kevin Sonyuka. So I think now the question goes to Dr. Onyange. So I would like, Doctor, if you can talk something about that.
Thank you very much. I didn't get the question very clearly, but I think allow me from the charts to address from the inbox charts, which I've seen a few questions. The farmers' adoption of climate smart agriculture, and then the issue of application of zero tillage in paddy rice. And then I think there's the issue of managing rice and livestock, if you allow me just to mention that. One, why farmers are not adopting. I have seen from Guang has mentioned something very important in Uganda. The first major problem that makes farmers not to adopt minimum or climate smart agriculture is the mindset and the training. Now, he has asked for 5 priority issues. One is mindset. Number 2 is the temporary trade-off. Farmers would like to trade straw for money or for livestock keeping at the expense of the crop in the field and the soil physical condition. The other third priority issue is access to technology. You have seen and heard Banorende is indicating the issue of technology access, particularly in the western part when we are talking about the laser technology for the purpose of leveling. That sometimes is beyond the reach of normal farmers, and machinery sometimes are not available. In fact, in Ahero we have one now, but I think that would be the second one in Kenya, and they are not there. The other issue is the high cost and the access to credit, which is a cross-cutting issue in some of the technologies. The last one is the risk and acceptability of some of the technologies. So you really see there needs to be capacity building of farmers to create access for that. Number 2 is can we adopt zero tillage in paddy rice farming? I've seen that. Yes, that is interesting. Yes, as a challenge, but of course with a lot of caution. We have tried some work in Mwea irrigation scheme previously in 2016 to see with a view to actually testing the element of utilization of zero or minimum tillage in rice. But of course it involved cutting down from a previous crop, using mulch, then either flooding or burning. Then we use what we call hymeric seeds. That is the hybrid method of pre-germinating the seeds, then actually broadcasting. It works, but a bit labor intensive, and the weeding has to be done quite right. So somehow in a way it can, but of course with challenge. But it can work quite well in upland rice, but more so where that is being done, there's need for what we call, we will be able to use what is called direct seeding rather than transplanting. In a way that can work, but of course the technology and capacity building is actually important. The third one is managing rice and livestock system. Yes, this one in the year 2017, the straw in the rice Mwea irrigation scheme, the straw was able to sustain the livestock industry in Kenya as a matter of trade-off. But currently what farmers are doing is a kind of an integrated trade-off in the livestock rice farming, such that the livestock depend on the straw, and the livestock, the manure from the livestock is actually integrated back. I think that's what you've seen as presentation in my last topic, last slide, and what Orange has also given in terms of reuse and recycling. And farmers, most of them, as part of a gross margin in Mwea, is at least 3 hand carts of manure back into the field. That has actually worked quite well, but of course more needs to be done. I hope I've been able to attempt to answer some of them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daktari. For responding for these questions. And also, I think due to time, I think let's allow another question. Basically, this is the question goes to Dennis, and it's all about actually what are the top 5 barriers for farmer to transition into regenerative agriculture. So you are welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Robert. As have been mentioned, and I'm sorry that the presentation was not well able and for everyone. So first of all, I mentioned that we need to make water catchment easy for our field. That means we need to create swales and berms across the contour lines. When you are a small, medium, or large scale farmer, you need to maximize the catchment of the runoff that into your soil. If you don't have means for the tanks and so on, you need to look how we can keep it into your soil. Not the first step. And then another step, as I mentioned, is to look about how to make your system sustainable. You need to plant a lot of trees because the tree not only maintain the soil, but also it's maintained to store the underground water, and also to contribute to the fertilization of your soil. But by the adoption of the trees, you need to have a kind of mixture. You need to look for the agroforestry, which the one which are fixing the nitrogen to the soil, but also looking on the fruit trees because you need to consume. Look on the shrubs for making the shade and covering the soil, but also looking on the tall tree and the medium tree. And of course, you need to apply correctly the agronomic practices where you are farming. Here I'm talking about to plant on the time. For instance, if it's the time for the agriculture season, are you on the time? Are you preparing your land correctly? Are you equipped with all the resources that you need to make your soil fertile? This is at the beginning, because after setting up your system, you will not need to put much of the resources because you will be having a kind of store into your soil. And then you need to apply the techniques for the in-season care. So are you mulching correctly your soil? So are you putting or watering the time it's dry? Are you looking for the integrated pest and disease management technique? Yeah, this is another step. This is the third one. And of course, as we are looking for the sustainable system, you need to think about the livestock integration. Depends on the resources that you have. You can look for the small livestock or even the larger livestock, because when you do have the livestock, of course, you have enough manure, and you will reduce the waste from your plantation, because the livestock will be consuming the rest of the crops or the rest of those trees that I have been mentioning. Yeah, and of course, this I can't end by without saying about the issue of the mindset, because I have seen that most of the people are resisting to adopt those regenerative farming system because they are not producing as the big quantity, or it's not giving the high yield within a short period of time. It requires some time to get the system setting up and then to start to harvest as much as you need. And the products from the regenerative farming techniques are mostly organic products. And looking at the market, the prices are not really so different with the other inorganic products. And the people are saying, oh, why am I going to transition to the regenerative farming if I'm going to gain the same thing as the one using the conventional farming? And I'm going to have like less yield within the first years of the system. Yeah, here I can say that looking back in our ancestors in the past of the years, people used to have enough food without putting much effort into the farming. So this is the secret for the regenerative farming. So this is what can respond, but we need to see how we can mobilize our farmers to transition into this regenerative farming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis, for responding, into those questions. So we will have another session for to go through the questions. I'm seeing the question about commercializations are coming out, and the question about the cost-benefit analysis of the technology. So we will have another session where we're going to go through those questions. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to go to the second round of the third round of the speakers. So here we have about 2 subtopics. So the first subtopic is about the role of youth and women in promoting regenerative agriculture. And in this session, we are going to have Dr. Anna Tem, who is the agricultural economist, agribusiness, the development trainer, researcher, and advisor consultant. Actually, Dr. Anna Tem is senior lecturer and researcher who is specialized in marketing, trade, institutional economics, agribusiness value chain development, and social enterprise from Sokoine University. Just to add on top of that, she's the founder of Sokoine University Graduate Entrepreneurship Cooperative, the so-called SUGECO. And I think there are a lot of students who graduated through that SUGECO business model. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Anna Tem. So you are most welcome to do your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for welcoming me to become a speaker, given that SUGECO is not a project that was financed by Kilimo Trust. This is I see it as a huge privilege, actually, to be able to present to all who are the audience of this webinar. I will try to connect very much to what has been presented already. There are a lot of technologies that seem to be very good in terms of sustainability and good use of natural resources that we have. Some of these technologies have been here for a long time, but they've not been adopted that much. We see them within projects, and once the projects end, we don't see them really becoming sustainable. And that's why we are asking ourselves, how come farmers are not adopting the technologies? These are the questions that we ask ourselves before we even started SUGECO. And we said, yes, technologies are there, many technologies actually. Some of them are on the shelf in terms of science and technical know-how, knowledge, and so forth, but not being applied or adopted. And if they have been adopted, it's just for a short time, and then people switch back to their traditional ways of doing things. Africa failed to green revolution. They failed to, we have been talking about not applying enough fertilizers, not doing this, those are chemical fertilizers. And actually what I'll say first is that our training system is basically conventional. And we are trying to make sure that productivity increases by using more of the chemical inputs that are there. Can you please share my screen? My presentation, please. I'll continue talking. SUGECO was actually...
We are projecting soon, Doctor. So
okay, I'll continue talking.
Okay.
Yeah. SUGECO started with the premise that maybe we need to inject new human resources into the value chains in agriculture. And we decided that probably we need to have knowledge-intensive youth to get into agriculture value chain so that they can, they know the science, they know the technology, and they are more creative and innovative. And therefore, what we need is to find ways to make this kind of human resource enter into agriculture value chain at all levels, from production all the way to retailing, distribution, and so forth. So my sharing here will be what kind of experience do we have? We have 11 years of practice in this, and we started with a model, we call it the eco-business model. So I'll go through that. Why are we doing this? Inclusivity of women and youth is very, very important.
I'm on the right slide.
Yeah, I'll go fast. I know time is a big factor.
Am I on the right side?
So basically, yeah, you are okay. It's okay. I can start there. Okay. So population demographics tells us how many number of women is actually 51% in my country, 50% on average for Africa. And for the youth, we have 65 actually percent are below the 24, 28 years of age. But the 1.6% are youth in terms of Africa, age 15 to 30. So that is a big percent. You can see Kilimo Trust region, of course, is part of it. Can you go next, please? Next slide. Okay, so Sugeko value chain development is our approach, and we decided to develop a Sugeko model. And we say in terms of developing the human resource that can be the driver of change, transformation of agriculture in Africa, we need to work with youth and women, mindset transformation, to value agriculture as agribusiness or way of life that can also be prosperous. Demonstrating and application of entrepreneurship, business management approaches in creating, expanding business. This is another stage. But we also look at training emerging managers of startups, and also applying techniques and business skills for employees and emerging youth and women-owned companies. These are the activities that we have done in the past 11 years. Continue, please. Next. Yeah. Okay. This is one of the initiatives that I decided to talk about because it's very recent, where we work with Maryland University and Bocconi University in Italy, Maryland in the US. And here we did action research, trying to come up with a curriculum that we can train startups in women and youth. You can see the pictures is the combination, and we did the research that we are still doing the analysis, but it was very enriching understanding the agribusiness sector in Tanzania and what really these people need to be trained on to be able to develop their startups. Challenges also, we look at those challenges, and actually we did surveys every 2 weeks to follow up the application of training that we are doing. Next. Next. These computers these days are so slow. It is not changing on my side. Is it changing on your side?
Oh, it has changed on my side. It's on the action.
Okay. The satellite is slow.
Do it, and
I wish I had another computer with me, but I cannot switch now. Okay, so
can you switch now?
No, it hasn't changed on my side, but let me talk about it. I think the slide is about the program that we have for training, action approach, hands-on training. This is very, very important to note that if you want to stimulate new ideas, startups in business, and so forth, you need to do this through hands-on training, action research, and trying to work with those people you are trying to impact. And this is what we have done for biofortified crops. We work with Orange Place sweet potatoes, with the International Potato Center, and another project that was called Reaching Agent of Change. We also looked at different technologies, youth and business startups, about 10,000 youth in Tanzania, training of horticulture, poultry, root and tubers, sunflower production and marketing. We managed to reach women and youth 60,000 plus in the past 2 years. There was one big project that was through the Prime Minister's office that required building of greenhouses, net houses for horticultural production in every council. And every greenhouse, we were training 100 youth. That the number kind of went very high, but also the Haifa International provided us a big number of youth to train. And these were not only graduates from university, but also what we think youth who are left out after finishing standard 7, primary 7. If you don't continue, you don't get much direct support from the government. And these are the youth that we are training. We call them out of school, out of job youth. But we also do incubation wall-to-wall and visual incubation. Next.
You're back.
Has it changed? Is it a slide concerning internships that we in our model, after doing mindset transformation, we do entrepreneurship and business planning training. We decided that also youth, even those who have degrees, they have diplomas, they don't have confidence to go into business. And the way forward was to actually make sure there are internship locally and also internationally. We started taking interns to Israel in 2015. And up to now, this year, 260 youth went to Israel for 1-year internship. The US program started after 2019. And now we have positions of up to 400 plus interns every year for 1 year to 1.5 years. We are now a new program for European leg that we are sending 45 interns. And these are university students who have like 1 year to go. So before they finish maybe second year, if they are finishing third year, or fifth year, if they are finished, fourth year, if they are finishing the fifth year, they go and get attached to farms and any kind of business setups. And for the Europe this year, we are going to send animal scientists, veterinarian, and crop scientists to Denmark. And they've already processed almost everything, including the work permit and such kind of thing. And they'll go there for 1.5 years, they'll come back and then continue finishing their degree program. In that case, they gain enough skills for them to think about starting their own businesses. We have an incubator at our headquarters, Sugeko headquarters. It's a wall-to-wall incubator. We started with processing of fruits and vegetables, basically simple drying. Now we are doing other products, incubates from spices to baby food compositions, juices, bread from orange flakes, sweet potato, also trying to integrate what we did in promoting the orange flakes, sweet potato. And if you look at those pictures on the side, there was a picture for an intern in Israel. This intern is back home and he has done an excellent process of trying to use the skills that he got in Israel to develop demo farms, to work with communities and so forth. So it has a lot of impact in this. Partnership, I wanted to say that that is really very important for Sugeko to be able to do what it's doing. Then it has to partner with a lot of partners internationally, locally, the commercial banks, the government of Tanzania, non-government organizations, and so forth. Next, I think I have 2-3 more slides to finish. Yeah, main observations here, even when I was listening to you all who were presenting, is that we are working on the supply chain development. We are working on supply chain management. We are still having a lot of missing links that need to be worked on. I'm trying to think about how long we have heard about intercropping and the importance of intercropping. I did agriculture for my first degree, and I'm already 30 years, 31 and 32 years at Sokoine University of Agriculture, which is the center of excellence of agriculture. But we don't see all this being practiced a lot. And now we are thinking that if we can include those really people who we can target as leaders, women and youth, as managers, it is critical time to approach this transformation through hands-on application with realities on the ground. Sugeko, what it has done so far is because it is hand-holding the youth and women to do certain things in value chains. Then it has to first take a risk, do it, try it, show that it works before you take it to those beneficiaries. And that is a very good experience. There is a need to target entrepreneurship training, the need for sustainable development, because this is why projects, when project ends, project invest a lot of money beforehand. There is a lot of sunk cost that goes into there. And they believe that if the project finishes, then someone will have enough investment to start something similar to the project, which usually is not the case. Banks are not ready to finance startups and a lot of things. Can we go next? I'm trying to summarize, click again, then we'll see it coming. Strategic investment in youth and women is necessary for this thing to work. And we need to invest on training mindset for agriculture and agribusiness, business planning and management, entrepreneurship, and as I said, internships that we mentioned big numbers, but we need to buy tickets. We need to make sure that these interns go and also return, they get paid, is highly sustainable, but then there are some prepayments that are required, and we negotiate with the government, with the banks to get loans for the youth. There must be someone here there to handhold the youth to be able to participate. The incubation also require investment, and actually for the for SUA, we are trying, and we have already put up a proposal for agroecological center of excellence, because without really focusing directly into that, it will be very difficult. As someone already said, marketing of organic products, it's difficult because it's kind of a niche market. It's very small, and also people are not ready to pay unless we change people's mind to pay extra premium for organic. Then it will be very difficult to develop that. Incubation also require a lot of investment. Mentorship and coaching is necessary. If you leave entrepreneurs just in the beginning without being mentored, it becomes a problem. That's why acceleration programs that we see, a lot of acceleration programs, they end up with those who will win, they get some award, the rest will kind of go back to the same. Next and almost last. Yeah, there is a need to create facilitating business environment for startups. Must be very strategic. Few examples: youth and women business in production of inputs. For example, we have seen a lot of youth now in Tanzania that are producing organic fertilizers, the liquid fertilizers, and they struggle in trying to do trials, do research so that they can release products, even certification and so forth. I know two have already certified and they are selling their product, but also if they can get support to lift up something like that, which is more agroecological, regenerative agriculture, it will be nice. youth and women business in processing organic products. Who claims that this processed product is the organic? Right? It has to be some special support for this to be in the market. Next. Youth and women development demos. Yeah, this is necessary, as I said, hand-holding and showing actual enterprises, and actually based on enterprises, because if you don't base on enterprises, you may be doing a project that its return is negative or just break even at some point, and those will not survive. They have to be profitable, and also people can recultivate the profit to continue. One more. Youth and women in rare businesses, for example, BSF farming, highly integrated farming systems like the one that I like, the Denise presentation. These ones need special support. Otherwise, it's very difficult for someone to really get enough profit to continue. And it ends up with project formation, and that's it, and it doesn't continue. I remember when I was starting a BSF farming, I called some of the companies, private companies that are around. They told me BSF is never profitable unless you just want to do training, and then you live there. You cannot commercialize BSF. But I said, let me try and see if I can get the product first. And then I'll start looking at the way we can commercialize that, because in Asia, and there are big companies that are producing BSF larvae and eggs and so forth. Okay, next will be the last slide, which remind us that we have the 17 SDGs that we are looking at. And we should ask ourselves all the time that, where are we? In 2030, are we going, which ones are we really going to reach? Or is it going to be 2050? When, where? How many times, how many projects do we have to do for poverty to disappear? For zero hunger really to happen? For making sure everybody has access to health, water, clean water, and so forth? How many projects? And here we are seeing projects that are coming in and leaving. I would say that we are trying, Sugeko is trying, and others are also trying. Let us put hands together and try to make it work. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much, Daktari. Actually, this is very impressive, and yeah, I really appreciate for the work that you are doing, and especially actually to youth, and then to the women as well. So now this is very impressive, and I really appreciate for your time. We understand that you had a very busy schedule, but you have set aside time to knowledge us, actually to share with us knowledge. So we really appreciate for that. So the question keep on rolling. I think let's go to the last presenter. So our last presenter today, actually is Andrew Ebong, the CEO and the co-founder of Bongomin Group Limited. So actually he's the expert in food and agribusiness management from Purdue University. And they have been doing a lot, especially on the mechanization, and also you know, actually they have been part and parcel of several several projects. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Andrew Ebong, who will be taking us on the subtopic about the coordination of the joint effort and the learning from one another. So you are most welcome, Andrew Ebong.
Thank you so much. You know, it's very difficult to be the last presenter, but I want to encourage everybody that last is always not the least. And in our topic of today, this is where money is. So for those who are planning to pitch the presentation to the audience, please don't do it, because this is where money is. I want to start from where the last presenter said that we are all doing little things. We are all doing little many things, and those little many things need to be coordinated in order to make sustainability as far as regenerative agriculture is concerned. So my topic of today is coordinations and learning from one another. We have learned so much from the beginning of the presentations, and we still continue to learn. You will appreciate that each of us do not have the holistic knowledge about everything. We keep on learning little. And every stakeholder is doing some little things with regard to regenerative agriculture, with regard to climate smart agriculture, with regard to youth employment. So we need to have a consolidated effort to make sure that we are able to add up these little things we know, these little things we are doing to create influence and accelerate in sustainable impacts in adoption of regenerative agriculture. So I want to say that regenerative agriculture is build resilience in the food system by strengthening soils, water, biodiversity, resources. Yeah, this allows for reduced use of inputs and greater ability to withstand extreme weather events, thereby supporting productivity and resilience of our farmers. So why is regenerative agriculture important for the private sector, for us? And also the smallholder farmers. The smallholder farmers are also looking for money. The private sector are looking for money, and the smallholder farmers are looking for money. So let me bring this into perspective that 80% of the food system in sub-Saharan Africa is produced by smallholder farmers. And these farmers could see their household income increased up to $150 annually due to regenerative agriculture adoptions. And I want to say that 50% of the regenerative agriculture adoption could see African farmers reduce soil erosion by 30%. So maybe mulching, I don't want to dwell about it because people have spoken about it already, minimal tillage, etc. Up to 60% increase in water infiltrations through biochar used maybe in vegetables and the like. 24% in nitrogen content increase. For example, what we are doing is reuse, recycle, rice initiative, where we are rotating cereals and legumes, could increase the nitrogen content. If nitrogen content is increased, that means we are going to reduce the amount of external nitrogen we supply to our food system. Also, we will see increase in the carbon content, especially when biochar is used in coffee. It enables coffee to sequester more carbon into the soil. So having said that, we have to secure food system supply now, tomorrow, and tomorrow next. So regenerative agriculture allows for this, for the sustainability of the food supply system, and thereby strengthening livelihood and sequester carbon. Look at this. From trash to a soil conditioners. The trash we're talking about is the rice husk. You can see that in my picture on the left, the rice husk pile disorganized in the rice factory. We are trying to turn it into something that is useful. That is called the soil conditioners. Although this current process of transiting this rice husk into biochar is not 100% climate smart, because it still emits a lot of smoke into the atmosphere, pollute the atmosphere. There are better ways of doing this, but this provides an entry point that for those who do not have a lot of money can also do business and participate in the reuse of the husk. The next shows the advanced method of carbonization. Now, the advanced method of carbonization is extremely climate smart, especially in the process of making the biochar. In this way, you are able to completely produce biochar in situ. No smoke, no air pollution. You are able to utilize wide range of materials. Rice husk, coffee husk. You are able to utilize even rice straw and produce actually biochar. If the biochar demand is not enough, you can proceed and produce charcoal without a need of finding an external buyer. For those who have been producing briquettes from waste, they have a problem with finding an external buyer now, and that brings a problem with sustainability. If this is upscale, you will produce additional products, byproducts. We have the wood vinegar. The first photo on the right is a wood vinegar. The wood vinegar, you know, is a precursor for most of the organic pesticides. We'll produce also the tar, TAR, and TAR is used in cosmetic industries. And that is additional revenue for the private sector. Biochar can be used in we sell biochar to coffee farmers, especially those who are raising seedlings. So what does it do? It allows reduction in the amount of water you're applying to the seedlings by more than a third of the frequency of watering. If you're watering 3 times a week, you will this time water 2 times a week. That is what it means. So I mentioned that biochar is used in the coffee, and also you can use the coffee to husk to produce the biochar. The process of productions, I've already talked about it, but you can see how regenerative agriculture can work. From the coffee husk, you form manure, you take back to the coffee, and that is how the cycle continues. So what is the role of the business? Now, all what we have spoken, scientific information, scientific data, can only create impact if business take up. Why? Because businesses are many. They given the size, they have a lot of influence in politics. They have a lot of influence in how our technologies are taken. So once we have this capture the interest of the businesses, then the business have a huge role to play as far as scaling up of what we are proposing or what we are sharing is concerned. So most of the businesses have adopted net zero strategy. The net zero strategy is regards to emissions of what? Emission of methane gases into the atmosphere. Being it, even if it is small, we talk about wet, alternate wet and dry in as far as irrigation of the paddy rice production is concerned. If, for example, a processor of rice is giving a premium price for rice that have been produced through alternate wet and dry, I will tell you it will accelerate the adoption of alternate wet and dry and reduce emissions of methane gases into the atmosphere. Support farmers in the transitions of from conventional agriculture into regenerative agriculture. This is the role of the businesses because they're the one who give farmers money. They're the one who buy farmers' product. So it is only able, they're only able to capture the interest of farmers by giving them more money for this. Companies need to learn from each other. Right now, since the start of the webinar, we have been learning from each other. How do we organize companies to learn from each other and how to share their experiences in a journey of regenerative agriculture? Government have a role to play because if you joke with government, you will not succeed. As a business, as an NGO, as what? So government have a role to play. What do government need to play? First, certification of policy. The previous presenter have been talking about that it is very difficult to convince people that you pay a premium price for organic products because we are not sure that is purely organic product because government have not put in place policy that ensure there's transparency in the production and the processing of organic products. So government need to do this policy. Government need to support policies that ensure that regenerative produced products capture the markets. Private sectors have been urged to record progress on how they're contributing to climate change and how they are contributing to reductions of the climate change emission and how they are contributing to many other methane gases, reduction in methane gases. But government need to come in and provide a common metric to track this and report progress. Many countries for example, Philippines, they have a data bank, a knowledge bank for example, how to produce sustainable rice. How can we adapt this? How can our central government adapt this and produce a central knowledge data bank? What the professors are saying, what the doctors are saying, what the practitioners are saying, let it be in one portal so that any business who is willing to do regenerative agriculture can have access to this information. That's the role of government. You know, when governments begin to put some concepts that this works, people will have trust because politicians have a great influence over the decision of people. Marketing products that have been produced regeneratively by government to the last miles or consumers will change the trends of how we look at things. Look at this. This was a deliberate move by the Brazilian government to look at coffee which has been produced on a certain certification process and boost the consumptions of domestic consumption of that coffee from 2006 to 2015. Look at the trend. Uganda coffee is also growing, but we are not yet, government have not yet deliberately marketed that consumers need to consume coffee that have been produced by biochar, you know, organic. Government have not come clearly to that, but it is their role. What is the role of the development partners? Collaboration with companies to look at what financial benefit we can give, what knowledge benefit we can give this kind of webinar to the farmers to adopt regenerative agricultural practices. This is the support. They also need to support government, to support businesses, to agree into the common matrix, to report progress and track records. We need to commission a study to understand the attitude, awareness, and behavior of everyday food and beverage consumers when it comes to sustainability and regenerative agriculture. Most of the things we do, we are saying mushroom produced from rice straw. What is the people's attitude? What are the consumers' attitude, mushroom consumers' attitude on mushroom that are growing on rice straw? What are they aware that they have the same nutritional value on conventionally produced mushrooms? Development partners like the Kilimo Trust and many others to come need to create this awareness, need to commission this study. We need to understand the attitude. This will help businesses to access this kind of information and tailor their businesses to suit the customer's needs. Of course, government may have limited support in terms of money to market the concept of agriculture. Kilimo Trust like this and many others can support government to do that. Let's look at the role of consumers. Consumers, currently, their choices are not yet driven by concept of regenerative agriculture, but they have an interest in paying even premium prices for regeneratively produced products. We need to capture this interest. Once consumers start to pay an interest, pay higher prices for these products, you will see it will be driven. No one will beat each other to make these concepts go. It will be self-driven. Consumers are willing to pay for this, especially if scientists can prove that it has better taste. What is this what I talk about? Products that are produced regeneratively. If scientists can prove that it has a better taste, I will tell you consumer will pay. I will give an example that parboiled rice, consumers are paying big premium prices for it. But it is not because it has better taste, but it is because it has been marketed that is a healthy product. No consuming regularly milled rice, consume parboiled rice. That is the message that has been used for marketing it. If it can market that the product you're producing is better for the environment, the consumers are willing to pay for it. Look at this. This is how coffee has been marketed, that it will reduce obesity. diabetes, etc. Consume it. I will tell you that before COVID, the consumption of vegetable was low. Consumption of melon, of lemon was very low. But once it was marketed that, no, these things build your immunity better, then the consumptions have gone up. We even have less supply. Imagine that we position ourselves and market the products that are being produced regeneratively in this way. Everybody is going to benefit. With that, I will say, merci. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Obong, for a very good detailed presentation. I think that has a practical touch of it. So we really appreciate for your time as well. And I'm seeing there are so many questions that are trailing up, and our Kilimo Trust staff are picking them up, and I think we will be having the clear way forward from our main moderator, who is Rachel, about the next sessions as well. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our team leader, so who is Rachel Ajambo, to take up the next session. So you're welcome, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Salum, and thank you very much, our speakers. We really, really appreciate your time for making this a very, very interesting webinar. But we only, I think, have lost about maybe about 8 to 10 people since we started. So a very, very big hand clap to our speakers, Dr. Temu, Dr. Oyange, Mr. Andrew Ebong, and Ms. Denise Nyumba. We really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to engage with us, but also put together those very captivating slides that have actually engaged people up to this time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and to really, really appreciate you for making the time to participate in this webinar. I also would like to take this time to thank our participants. Most especially, I would like to recognize our former CEO, Dr. Mary Sheto, who has been with us, and she was part of design of actually this project, both the LSF project and the R4I CSF project. And she's always in the background supporting us. So thank you very much, Dr. Sheto. I would also like to thank our partners. We have quite a number of partners who have participated in this webinar. We have TechForce International, we have Recolto, of course we have Sokoine University of Agriculture based in Tanzania. We have NARO, we have the Ministry of Agriculture in Tanzania. We also have the Ministry of Agriculture in Uganda. And we also have our partners, Buginyanya Zadi. I saw them actually earlier on. And also, of course, GECO and Rwanda Youth in Agribusiness Forum, who are working with us in Rwanda, together with RUSID in Uganda and Oyam Agribusiness Farmers Area Cooperative in Northern Uganda. We actually have people literally from all over the East African community. Thank you so much for making the time to join this webinar. We also have people from Agri Research Hub, Chagalanyi Coffee, and the CGA group and the Food Corp. Many thanks for making the time to join us. I think I saw somebody from Simu Solar in Tanzania as well. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming and for staying with us. I don't think I've been in a webinar where people stay and the internet keeps disturbing them, but they keep going in and out of the room. So thank you so much for that. I would also like to thank the Kilimo Trust team who have been working tirelessly for the last about 1.5 months planning this webinar and making sure we have something successful today. Thank you so much, team Kilimo Trust from all our country offices. Of course, with our knowledge management team who have been spearheading this one, plus our admin team, our HR team, our finance team. Thank you so much for putting this together. I would like to also apologize that we have shot through this webinar. It was supposed to be strictly for 2 hours, but now we have ended up taking about almost 3 hours on this webinar. Apologies on this one, and we promise to do better next time so that we not only provide very good content, but also make sure we provide it within the time limits that we have promised to hold our meetings. I would like to just zero in down on a couple of takeaways from the speakers. I know we have a lot of questions, and I know there are so many questions that we have. Let us promise that on the next webinar, this is the first of a series of webinars on regenerative agriculture. And we will now be taking these questions that we have. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time on this webinar, but we promise to pick up these questions, categorize them into major broad themes, and these themes will now we will now use these themes as our topics for the next discussion, for the next webinars in this series on regenerative agriculture. So for those that have shared your questions and they've not been raised to you, but we also promise that these will now form the basis for the next series of webinars under this major theme of regenerative agriculture. And therefore, our knowledge management team is picking these up, and we will now be sending through the next series of webinar topics, and they will actually be some of the answers to the questions that you have raised in this very first series of webinars. The key takeaways from today's webinar really I've captured about 6 of them. These are really, really high level. And the first one and the key one is that regenerative climate change is real, actually. That is one of the things that have been driven home today, that climate change is real. We cannot afford to ignore it any more than we have in the past, and that our normal agricultural or conventional agricultural practices can no longer manage, and in fact they are creating more gaps than answers, and therefore we are looking at regenerative agriculture as one of the solutions. It is not the solution, but it is at least one of the solutions that can actually bridge some of these gaps. Number 2, it is undisputed that the demand for food is going up. We are now 8 billion strong. I think we made 8 billion about 2 months ago on October, somewhere in early October. I think it was October the 8th, when we became 8 billion, when the 8 billionth baby was born, I think somewhere in Asia. And now we are still growing, and it is taking lesser and lesser time for the world population to double. It took more than 100 years, or even about maybe 200 years for the world population to double in the early centuries. But now we are talking about every 14 to 18 years, the world population increases by 1 billion people. And so, so food demand is on the rise. Climate change is also, the effects of climate change are also increasing. And therefore, we need a new mindset change and training, especially about regenerative practices. And this was something that was emphasized by Denise, but also later on by Dr. Temu, that we need a mindset change about how do we approach food production for sustainable, how do we produce food sustainably for the 8 billion people plus right now that need food every day, at least 3 meals a day. And therefore, that was the third takeaway, mindset change. And then number 4 was we need to sometimes sit back and evaluate how many projects, where are we, what are we doing about the Sustainable Development Goals? We already had the Sustainable Development Goals have a timeline of until 2030. We are already at 2022 end. Actually, we are going into 2023. Where are we? How many projects is it going to take for us to be able to at least say that for the sustainable goals, number 1 on zero hunger, this is where we are as a globe, and this is where we are as Africa, this is where we are as a country, or as individual countries. And therefore, that is another very key food for thought about sitting back and taking stock on where we are, and these projects that we are implementing everywhere in the different institutions, how are these collaboratively contributing to optimizing our outputs on the sustainable development goals. The fifth lesson really is that even as we are doing different interventions in different places by different people, we must develop those, we must be more innovative about collaborative management and leadership, and also building those synergies that will help us to ensure that our initiatives, the different institutions, Kilimo Trust, plus the private sector, plus people like Sugeko, plus NARO and the government and businesses, how are we together building a whole out of the pieces that we are each working on? And so collaborative leadership and management and building those synergies and those bridges are quite key. Our last key takeaway is that which was hammered home by Andrew, is that that private sector is actually quite key in influencing actually adoption of some of these technologies, but also innovations that we feel should be uptaken by stakeholders in the agriculture sector. And so he was urging all of us to harness the power and the influence of private sector in adopting some of the climate smart agriculture and greening technologies that we are looking at, so that we reduce that backyard or that graveyard of having very many innovations, but they are on the shelves and not being adopted by stakeholders and private sector. So these are the key takeaways as we wrap up for today's session. I also like to take this opportunity to thank all of us and to congratulate all of us for actually staying the 3 hours until now. Now it is only 10 minutes to, in fact, 9 minutes to 5 p.m. For this very interesting webinar. We promise that we will be able to come back again. We are working and planning to have these webinars, at least a couple of topics addressed once, at least every quarter, and if that's not possible, at least once every 6 months. We promise to be able to come back and share more lessons, but also pick up some of the arising matters that are coming through from these webinars. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone and to wish everyone happy holidays. It is now coming to Christmas time. Actually, it is Christmas next week on Sunday. So I will take this opportunity as Kilimo Trust on my own behalf, on behalf of my family, and on behalf of the entire Kilimo Trust family. We want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very festive season, a very happy festive season, and prosperous New Year 2023. And we look forward to partnering with all of you and most of you, even as we implement programs and initiatives that together contribute to mitigating the effects of climate change. So I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a very happy evening and a very good evening to everyone. Thank you. Over to our managers in the back, and goodbye everyone. Thank you. Let us catch up in the new year as God gives us life in the new year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. I don't know if we have already talked about the next webinar date.
Thank you very much, Salum. I think we will be communicating the date of the next webinar, and we will be publishing that on all our social media handles and on all our online platforms. Please have a look out for those even as we go. Maybe we can have the video that was playing earlier on as a part of our parting shots today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. And this marked the end of this webinar. I really appreciate for your time. Thank you very much.